Hi, everyone. A huge thank you for staying through the end of what's hopefully been a really inspirational Phocuswright, a time to connect with the ecosystem, with your friends, with your fellow enthusiasts in our wonderful world of travel. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are today from Google's perspective, what we see coming up next, what excites us, and a little bit of what the future holds. I'm James. I lead travel product for Google Search. And I think you would agree that right now, the pace that we are living in, the pace of transformation, the pace of change is fast. Very, very, very fast. I think it harkens back to the mobile rise, back to the first .com era, some of these real moments we look back on as being huge shifts. So the world is changing quickly. Google is changing with it. If you were coming to search 5 years ago and doing a travel search, you would probably search for something like this. You would say, things to do in Nashville, or what's the weather in Nashville, or what can I fly to Nashville, what do flight prices cost, or hotels in a certain neighborhood. In your mind, you'd break down your question into these little 3, 4, 5-word queries, and you would issue lots of them. Hundreds and hundreds of queries over weeks and weeks of travel planning for a typical trip. That is not what users are doing today. Today, users are saying, things to do in Nashville this weekend with friends. We're big foodies who like music and also chill vibes, exploring off the beaten path. Right? This is happening. This is the change that's happening in how people search because they expect a different response. They expect AI to do something magical for them. And it can do something magical. We like to say that context unlocks magic. We want every user to come and say what they really want, not break it into their little 3-word, 4-word bits. We can do that for them. We can take that super long, super complex, rich query and break up the pieces of it. Here we're talking about AI mode, which I'll show a bunch of later on today. AI mode can take that query, break it into its component parts, issue a whole bunch of searches, check the weather, check flights prices, check hotel data using the feeds we all partner on, and stitch together a response that really is magical, that's rich, that understands the nuance of what they're asking for. And we'll see some examples of that as we go. And so a big message from our perspective is that AI has been part of Google and part of search for many, many, many years. But AI is not enough. You have to have a fantastic model. You have to have the context that a user brings to the search. But you also have to ground that answer and ground how you respond in a lot of ways to not just be the clever little bits that an LLM emits. You have to ground using the knowledge graph, facts about the real world, billions of them. You want all the rich content that the web has, be it photos or reviews or videos, short or long, about a place. Of course, price and availability, this incredible richness of feeds that we've built together as an ecosystem, tell you what things actually cost. Incredibly important to get that right. We have maps data for the geographical world. We have personalized data, whether it's previous searches or increasingly, if you opt in, Gmail data to tell us more about what you care about, what matters to you. And we have agents that are going out into the world, into the ecosystem, and doing the work and solving some of the cumbersome tasks that make travel planning or travel booking hard. And so bringing all those together, you have to have a fantastic LLM under the hood. And we're very lucky and have invested a lot in building Gemini to be that LLM that stitches all of that content together. But you can't just have one or the other. You can't just rely on an LLM to give you a clever trip plan. You need all the data behind it. I hope you've all had a chance this week to play with Gemini 3 in its many forms, and today Nano Banana Pro. If you haven't, please go give it your hardest questions. It's really a remarkable shift in capability on many, many dimensions, travel planning being just one. So this wealth of information and LLMs stitching great results together shows up in lots of places. It shows up in AI overviews used by over 2 billion monthly active users. It shows up in AI mode, our conversational search product that has over 75 million daily active users. It shows up in Gemini app, 650 million monthly active user product. It's also now in Maps, Ask Maps, was launched earlier in November. So you see the threads of this kind of revolution everywhere at Google. So that's all good. I think we're all excited about AI, right? We've seen days and days of soaking in it. What does it look like today in practice? What's live? And where do we have this context-making magic today in Google search? Well, let's look at how the deep grounding of data and the deep personal context we can extract and multimodal input, be it images, video, text, voice, co-creation with an LLM when you're building a long-term plan, and the beginnings of this agentic world. Let's see how they all play out in Google search today. Now, for those of you who fly, I'm assuming many of you flew here, you probably searched for something like NYC to San on November 21st through November 24th. This is how the internet has taught us to search for flights for over 20 years. Break it into an origin and a destination and some dates, and off you go. This is not what users want, most users. We find that a majority of users are date flexible, and a majority of users are destination flexible. They want a weekend trip to a European city with Christmas markets. They don't mind which weekend. A bunch of different weekends might work. AI flight deals is part of our flights product, now launched in over 200 countries and over 60 languages, uses the power of both worlds, the world of LLMs to understand where the good Christmas markets are, and the world of our flights data that we build with all of our flights partners to show that there's lots of good deals to some of these landmark cities. You can go to Bruges for a 71% discount on a regular nonstop fare. And so stitching together these two worlds happens in lots of different contexts and unlocks value that you never would have been able to get in a traditional search, certainly not quickly. If you're looking for a hotel in Taos and you want it to be family friendly, and you want it to be near hiking trails, and you want to have not just a pool, but a heated pool, well, you can get some of those things in today's world, but we would rather personalize the results directly to your query. Looking at maps data to see where hiking trails are, looking at web data and videos and reviews to see if the pool is actually heated, looking to see that there's a barbecue area where maybe you can have a picnic with your kids, stitching together all of those sources, not just a clever LLM trying to think what might be correct. Now, it's not all just about flying or about hotels. Lots of travelers are taking trains or riding their bike across country or are trying to figure out how they can get somewhere on the cheap. Here, a student wants a trip around Europe and staying in hostels and taking the train. We can generate a response that grounds this in the actual transit data and tells them not just here are some wonderful cities to visit, but the Bernina Express between Switzerland and Italy is so magical that the LLM knows to call it out and say, this is probably the highlight of this entire trip. So make sure you're awake and alert as you go through this magical corner of Europe. Now, if I'm driving around in a complex trip like once-in-a-lifetime trip to Ireland, maybe I have specific needs and I want to start and end in Dublin, I want live music. By the way, these are all queries you can do today. This is all live in production in AI mode. I want to tour around Ireland and I want to know where I can hear live music. Our feed doesn't tell us where live music is. It doesn't tell us where the best live music can be found. It tells us that the Tí Chomhlí is open from a certain set of hours, but the live music starting at 9:30 p.m., you would have had to go to their website and figure that out yourself and stitch those things together. The LLM is wonderfully good at stitching them for you. Now, taken even further, what if the friction of this planning experience is something you want to reduce? What if you want to book that perfect hotel right in the middle of your experience? That's what we announced on Monday in collaboration with an array of partners, Booking, Choice, Expedia, IHG, Marriott, Wyndham, to test and see how users might do the booking directly in AI mode. And both give options across date combinations, show which hotels fit their needs, but go all the way through to a booking, to a confirmation, to an experience that reduces some of that friction, some of that FOMO, and makes for a magical travel planning experience, gets over some of those really big stress points where you're actually booking the trip. So the world for us, the world for our ecosystem, we see as being a world of tremendous promise. We have a chance together to take this brilliant set of innovations across the industry in AI, stitch them together with the world we know, the world of travel, the world that we've optimized and built and been passionate about for years and years. And the two of them together with deep grounding, with the context of what users care about, with inputs in any form that a user cares to enter, co-creating their trip with an LLM, and eventually having agents help get that last part done or solve the cumbersome challenges that previously took hours of research. We can do that in a new way. And I think the world of our future world over the coming months and years will be as exciting a change as I think I've ever seen. So for us at Search, we feel privileged to work in travel because we feel like the future of search is built for travelers. And we feel privileged to be a part of this ecosystem where we can help connect our travelers to that perfect bit of their holiday, of their trip, in a magical way that was unthinkable even a few years ago. So with that, thank you, and we'll switch over to questions about how this all hangs together for the next few minutes.
James, hi. Thank you for such a great presentation. Let's jump right in. So obviously the news that agentic travel booking is coming to Google is significant.
Yep.
But you haven't put a timeline on this. So what do you anticipate the challenges will be in bringing that to market?
Great question. I would frame two different challenges. One is the technical challenge in getting this experience to be seamless, in getting payments to work, and making sure that we're adding value, right? It has to work. It has to work for the ecosystem, and it has to work kind of and hang together as an experience. That, I think, will solve in the next few months. I don't think that's going to be a long-term proposition. The other challenge is, what do users expect? What do they want? And that's one we're going to learn together with our partners and with the ecosystem as we go, right? We'll see what users want. I think 2026 will be the year where we learn a lot. Hard lessons, fun lessons, a whole mix as we enter this brave new world.
Yeah, so you mentioned partners, and you've announced a number of them, and I know that there are some other deals in the works that you expect to broaden that list. But can you help us understand how the commercial model works with these partners and how it's going to work going forward?
Sure. What's bedrock for Google is helping our users and connecting them to the right partner, the right price, the right time. That doesn't change in this world. And so whether a user, traveler, comes along and clicks out on a booking link, a traditional booking link to a property, a hotel through an OTA, or they go through this sort of transactional route and have AI help them, we really want that to be as broadly accessible as possible in terms of partners that can enter that ecosystem and not have a lot of commercial barriers to playing there. So at the moment, we see this being a similar model that we have today. We'll adapt it if we need to, but this is really meant for every partner, for every way to buy, and have as open an ecosystem as we can have.
Yeah, so I'm curious. It seems like right now the idea is that the agentic booking will encompass partners. So how are you building trust when the results that you're presenting are partners and not general search results?
Yeah, great question. Trust feels very asymmetrical to me, and I think to Google broadly, where it's very hard to gain over long periods of time, and it is very easy to lose in those infuriating, confusing moments where you just don't know what's going on. So I think trust for us is about transparency first and foremost. What is the commercial relationship we have? How do our commercial relationships affect ranking? What's an ad? What's not an ad? Here in the agentic world, as in the world today, we will try to be really, really clear about how we make money, about how we work with the ecosystem, about who's allowed in. And I think we would keep that as open as possible, and also try and separate the promotion of content from actually clicking through to book or booking in the agentic world. We would treat those as separate worlds.
Okay, so as you talk about openness, where are the advertising models going to fit in going forward?
Another excellent question, a proverbial billion-dollar question. I think one of the themes you'll hear me say repeatedly, hopefully not to your frustration, is that we're experimenting with it. This world didn't exist 2.5 years ago, right? The interfaces that we're playing with didn't really exist in a meaningful way. So the experimentation we're doing is first start from what we know and start from what users value and see how those worlds fit today. We don't have to innovate on everything, everywhere, all at once. Let's try familiar ad formats, familiar bidding models, familiar kind of firm ground we can stand on and see if that works for users, for the ecosystem, and then adapt. And so I think you'll start to see over time some of those experiments in AI mode in a more traditional kind of advertising model. We may explore other things, but I think we'll start from what we know well today and adapt it as we see it needs to change.
Right, so we're all learning together, but there's a lot of competition in this space. So I'm curious how Google stands apart from your position in comparison to other AI providers that are working towards similar agentic travel booking capabilities.
Yep. I would first say that the result of this competition is awesome for users, right? It's awesome for users. We're going to have to fight for user trust and to demonstrate user value and really make it clear that Google has something to offer. Otherwise, users will go elsewhere. And that's great, right? I think it's good for the ecosystem too, because I think it's where innovation comes from. What I think we bring and what we alluded to when I was describing sort of Google's play here is that the LLM is very, very important, but there's lots of choice now in LLMs, lots of models you can go use. For us, it's bringing all of those other pieces, the data we ground on, be it maps or the knowledge graph or flight prices or hotel inventory. Those are what make the difference. You can go to an LLM today that doesn't have those grounding sources, and it will cook up a really interesting trip plan, and then you go look, and the first place on the list is 2 times, 4 times the price. You're not going to go back and use that again to plan your trip. We think we have a lot of strengths there.
Fair enough. And we know from Phocuswright research that travelers are already using AI for trip planning.
Yep.
So to what extent is AI mode playing a role in that currently? How many travelers are using that?
Yep, we don't have a how many travelers kind of number. What I would say is most striking for us is the change in behavior, the sort of 2-3-word query to many-word query. It's real and it's happening quickly. We see users pouring out their hopes and dreams in a single query, right? Really telling us, I gave this Nashville example, which is kind of a medium-length query.
Well, you said context creates magic, right?
Context is magic, unlocks magic. We see users entering everything about their trip, right? Their hopes and their dreams and their siblings coming with them, and they want to stop there and do this and that, like this really incredibly rich idea of what they want. So the behavior is changing, the expectations are changing. A user expects that they'll get out of that a plan that's amazing. And that's also a competitive angle, right? They see that elsewhere, not just at Google. So we've got to respond and innovate and move.
And when agentic booking becomes widely available, how quickly do you anticipate travelers to adopt that?
Gosh, I think that's the second billion-dollar question. One of the things we see in our research is that the point right before a traveler commits, right before they make the first big purchase, is one of the highest emotional load kind of times in their whole journey. Even for some travelers, more stressful or more emotional than the trip itself, right? Which is wild to think about. You take the trip of a lifetime somewhere, and what was the most emotionally charged moment? It was the moment before you clicked.
Well, it's a lot of anticipation. It's exciting.
It's a lot of anticipation. It's also sometimes a lot of money.
Yeah, that too.
So what I think we see is that there have to be many ways of making that planning and booking journey less stressful, and where you actually you don't just have lower stress, you get more from the trip. Go to the places you never imagined, book the hotel you didn't think you could quite get to work on dates you may not have considered. There's all these facets of making that core experience better.
Yeah. And how do you think AI is changing who owns travel discovery?
Yeah, I think travel discovery I see as being really broad, right? I think the travelers we see are learning about where they might want to go on short-form video sites, on blogs, on podcasts, everywhere, which I think is wonderful, right? It's a wonderful diversity of sources. Sometimes on Google, certainly on YouTube, lots of travelers are thinking about those experiences on YouTube. So I think you'll see this explosion of content, AI-generated, AI-curated content, lead to broader discovery, more rich discovery. And a lot of that will happen all over the place, right? A lot of that's not going to happen on Google.
And as we wrap up, we'll keep this quick. I have 2 more questions. How would you advise all the travel companies in this room to prepare for the agentic shift?
Yeah. I think preparation is in 2 parts. One is don't abandon the foundations you have today, right? When we think about feed data and prices and availability in some of these domains, still incredibly important because that's how you anchor the conversation and where you start from. At the same time, LLMs are unbelievably good at matching content to user need. And so if you know the niche bits of your business about what travelers care about that maybe never really surfaced before in search or never surfaced before in some of these surfaces, they might surface on those really long, rich contextual queries, right? There's a new opportunity to surface that content. So use human voices, use factual content, get all those little bits of nuance out there because users will find them.
Okay, and as we close out our conference here, this theme is game on. So we're going to leave our last question to chance, and it's really a one quick answer. But what's the best airport in the world? This is our question card. Best airport in the world? I am biased. I think the previous answer was Singapore, which is a good answer, but I think Zurich, my hometown, is the best airport in the world. Very orderly, very clean, very fast, wonderful airport. Perfect. Then you're looking forward to returning there. Safe travels home, and thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Morgan.